The Damn That Broken Empire. I'm Henry Caldwell, a 52-year-old electrician from Bozeman, Montana, who thought I'd hit rock bottom when my divorce stripped me of everything but my toolbox. Then I inherited 847 acres of what everyone called worthless swampland from my great-uncle Clarence. They said it was a tax burden, a muddy mess good for nothing but mosquitoes. But when a corrupt homeowners association tried to steal it with fake surveys and greased palms, I turned their dream of 79 luxury cabins into a soggy nightmare. By opening an old dam, I flooded their illegal empire and taught them a lesson in federal law they'll never forget. What would you do if someone tried to rob your family's legacy with a smile and a clipboard? Stick around, because this story of revenge gets wild. 6 months ago, my life was unraveling faster than a cheap extension cord. A plant closure cost me my job of 15 years. My divorce took half of what was left, leaving me with a beat-up truck and a stack of bills. When the lawyer called about Clarence's will, I figured it was another debt I couldn't pay. You've inherited 847 acres, including something called Caldwell Lake, he said, like he was handing me a flat tire. It's mostly wetland, Henry. Maybe good for duck hunting. The 6-hour drive to see my inheritance gave me time to wonder if Clarence had left me a gift or a curse. I remembered him as the eccentric old man who showed up to family reunions smelling like diesel and muttering about grand plans for his land. Most folks thought he'd lost his mind out there, living alone for 40 years. But when I crested the hill and saw Caldwell Lake, I got it. 800 acres of crystal clear water shimmered like a mirror, fed by underground springs that laughed at Montana's drought years. The old homestead sat on a rise, overlooking the lake, with Clarence's equipment barn and generator shed nearby. At the outlet stood the earthen dam he'd built in the 1940s for irrigation. The air smelled of sweet prairie grass and clean minerals, and my voice echoed across the water when I shouted, just to break the silence. Then came the black SUV. She stepped out in designer hiking gear that cost more than my truck, all khaki and crisp like she was posing for a catalog. Clipboard in hand, fake smile plastered on, she introduced herself. You must be Clarence's nephew. I'm Evelyn Harper, president of the Pinecrest Estates Homeowners Association. We're your new neighbors. Her tone dripped with the kind of superiority that comes from thinking money makes you untouchable. Neighbors was a stretch. Her HOA's fancy development bordered my land, and she'd been eyeing it like a vulture for years. This wetland must be overwhelming, she said, glancing at her clipboard like it held the secrets to eternal life. Boundary issues, environmental regulations, it's more trouble than it's worth. I'd like to offer you $15,000 to take it off your hands. Cash, close next week. When I laughed, her smile tightened like a piano wire. This land's been in my family since 1923, I said. I'm keeping it. Her eyes narrowed. The county takes environmental violations seriously, Henry, and boundary disputes can get expensive. She drove off, leaving a cloud of dust and a threat hanging in the air. That evening, I found survey stakes that weren't mine and a set of architectural plans caught on a fence. Pinecrest Lake Resort, 79 luxury cabins. Evelyn wasn't offering to help. She was trying to steal my inheritance. 3 days later, a certified letter arrived while I ate a gas station sandwich in my truck. Evelyn had filed a complaint, claiming my dam violated flood ordinances and threatened her development. Her evidence? A survey by her cousin, Vernon Harper, who couldn't measure a backyard without a GPS. I hit the courthouse, where a kind clerk charged me $5 for a copy of the 1923 land grant. It was clear as day. My 847 acres, a 200-foot buffer zone cutting through Evelyn's HOA, and federal water rights that trumped local nonsense. Digging deeper, I found a pattern. The Thompsons got hit with wetland violation fines after refusing Evelyn's buyout. The Millers faced groundwater contamination charges 6 months after saying no. Every complaint was filed by Evelyn and rubber-stamped by her golf buddy, County Planner Diane Ellison. I spent $1,500 I didn't have on a federally certified survey. The surveyor, Tom Bradley, looked like he'd seen a ghost when he finished. Henry, their tennis courts, pool, and half their walking paths are on your land. They've been squatting on federal property for 15 years. Original land grants from 1923 outweigh any local ordinance, and Clarence's dam was grandfathered under every environmental regulation. I had her. I called Evelyn at dawn, cheerful as a car salesman. Just a heads up, I'm installing new property markers today. Your tennis courts and pool are on my land. Her voice was ice. What kind of markers? The kind that correct your little boundary confusion, I said. Federal land grants don't care about your HOA bylaws. By noon, concrete markers dotted her paradise like gravestones. HOA residents milled around, staring at no trespassing signs that declared their amenities illegal. Evelyn's SUV screeched in. This is harassment, she shrieked. I waved the federal survey. You're the one trespassing, Evelyn. She threatened lawsuits. I promised criminal trespassing charges and a bill for 15 years of illegal land use. 2 weeks later, she upped the ante with a $50,000 environmental impact assessment demand, claiming my dam posed a flood risk. For a guy on unemployment, that was a death sentence. But Clarence had built a fortress. Crawling through the dam with a flashlight, I found reinforced concrete, steel mesh, and drainage systems that would make modern engineers jealous. It was WPA grade, built to survive anything. Then I checked courthouse insurance records. Evelyn's HOA had flood insurance on all 79 cabin sites, citing upstream dam failure risk. She wasn't worried about flooding. She was banking on it to cash out her development. I adjusted the dam's release valves under my 1923 irrigation permit, cutting downstream flow by 30%. By noon, Evelyn's decorative creek was a trickle, her fountain gurgled to a stop, and her flower beds wilted. She called, furious. What did you do to our water? Just exercising my water rights, I said. Drop your complaints, acknowledge my property lines, and we'll talk. Desperate residents dragged hoses to save their landscaping, a pathetic sight that felt better than my divorce settlement. A county engineer, hired for a rush inspection, spent 3 hours in the dam and emerged in awe. This is the finest small-scale dam I've seen in 20 years, he said. Evelyn's complaints were stamped frivolous in red ink. Then she went too far. Bulldozers arrived at dawn, tearing down century-old oaks and cottonwoods under emergency permits signed by Diane Ellison. The air turned acrid with chainsaw exhaust and diesel. By noon, my sanctuary was a war zone. The final straw was finding Daisy, a young doe I'd watched drink at the lake for months, drowned in muddy runoff tangled with construction wire. Rage replaced reason. I called Laura Bennett, an environmental journalist who'd exposed small-town corruption for years. Photos of dead fish, felled trees, and Daisy's lifeless eyes hit her inbox. This is a war zone, she said, voice shaking. Her story went viral, painting Evelyn's project as environmental murder. Evelyn doubled down, hiring security goons to watch my every move and rushing 45 cabins to completion in 10 days. But I had Clarence's ace, a 1923 contract with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, found in his basement safe. Caldwell Lake was a designated emergency water supply for 3 counties, giving me federal authority to control water flow during droughts. Clarence's journals revealed he'd maintained this status to fend off developers like Evelyn. Those 79 cabins sat in a federal flood zone, and I could legally drown them. I built a coalition. Michael Torres, an environmental lawyer, took my case on contingency, smelling blood. Dr. Emily Carter, a hydrologist, documented the ecological damage and calculated restoration needs. Local contractor Jim Bulldog Hayes, screwed over by Evelyn's rigged bids, provided insider dirt on her finances. Tribal liaison Margaret Black Elk and her nephew, Chairman Daniel Black Elk, brought federal cultural preservation laws, declaring the lake a sacred site. We planned for Labor Day weekend, when Evelyn's grand opening would draw a crowd. Evelyn played dirty. My power line was cut, my generator drained amateur sabotage caught on my trail cameras, showing 2 out-of-state goons. The FBI took interest. Tampering with federal water infrastructure is a terrorism charge. Evelyn offered me $500,000 to walk away. I bluffed about wearing a wire, watching her panic. Then she targeted my family, sending creeps to my daughter Lily's school in Denver, asking about my mental health. Lily's tearful call, "Dad, are you okay?" lit a fire I couldn't extinguish. Labor Day arrived. Evelyn's festival was a spectacle, mariachi bands, barbecue, and state officials ready to cut ribbons. Her PR firm painted me as an environmental terrorist. But at 3 p.m., as she crowed about progress, I opened the dam. Sirens wailed, cutting through her speech. I rolled in with Clarence's 1950s Ford, Michael, FBI agent Rachel Lee, Emily, Daniel, and Bulldog behind me. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, I'm Henry Caldwell, and this celebration is over. Michael laid out the fraud, fake permits, environmental crimes. Emily showed photos of ecological devastation. Daniel invoked tribal treaties, voiding the development. Agent Lee cuffed Evelyn for conspiracy and infrastructure tampering. The crowd watched, stunned, as water lapped at cabin foundations. News cameras caught every second. You sold these people illegal property, I told Evelyn. You destroyed their dreams, not me. By evening, her empire was underwater literally. 6 months later, Evelyn was in federal prison for 18 months, her mugshot a viral meme. Cabin buyers recovered 80% of their investments through lawsuits. The Clarence Caldwell Environmental Trust now owns 1,200 acres, partnering with the State University for sustainable research. 35 buyers joined me to build an eco-friendly community, boosting property values 40%. The annual Caldwell Lake Conservation Festival draws 10,000 visitors, celebrating restoration. My kids, especially Lily, now 17, see me as a hero, not a failure. She's studying environmental engineering, carrying Clarence's legacy. The legal precedent we set has helped 12 other communities fight corrupt HOAs. Diane Ellison resigned in disgrace, replaced by a rancher's daughter who values stewardship. Scholarships fund local kids studying conservation. Bulldog's company thrives, building sustainable projects. Daniel and I co-chair the trust, blending tribal wisdom with science. The lake is pristine again, wildlife returning. Daisy's grave a quiet reminder of why I fought. Sometimes, justice isn't about revenge, it's about building something better. What do you think? Was I right to flood those cabins, or did I go too far? Share your thoughts in the comments, especially about fighting injustice or facing bullies in your life. Where do you stand when power and greed clash with what's right? Let's hear your voice.